Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Molly. I'm from the Bureau of Student Wellness at the New Hampshire Department of Education, and I'm so excited to be joined from some community members from Claremont, New Hampshire. And before we get going, I just want to remind everybody that you can find our social media on YouTube. This is where we're live today. We're also on Facebook for our morning chats, and we tweet out pretty regularly, and our resource website is nhlearnsremotely.com. We encourage you to follow all of those and subscribe so you get notified every time we go live. And we also encourage you to use the hashtag NHLearnsRemotely so we can see how you're staying well in this pandemic. We are here today to talk about wellness, but also lived experience. Like I said, I'm joined here from some community members from SAU 6. SAU 6 consists of 2 school districts, Claremont and Unity. And in Claremont, there are 3 elementary schools: Bluff, Disnard, and Maple Avenue Elementary. There's Claremont Middle School and Stevens High School, and also the Sugar River Valley Technical Center. SAU 6 has roughly 1,900 students, and they serve pre-K to 12. There's also approximately 300 staff members. So joined with me today, I have just a handful of those staff members, and we also have a family from the community as well. We're so excited to have this cross section to talk about their experience with remote learning, social distancing, and their thoughts as we move to the future, to the summer and next school year. So I want to introduce everybody real quick. I have Donna Magoon. She is the Assistant Superintendent of Schools. She taught as a teacher, both in special and regular education for over 18 years. She was administrator for over 6 years. And in the evening, she worked as an adjunct professor at the Lakes Region Community College, and then became the evening program coordinator. I also have Bryn Kane, who is a curriculum coordinator for grades pre-K to 5. She taught in Claremont for 13 years and then moved in curriculum coordination after that. And then I also have Stephen Moss here. He is the curriculum coordinator for grades 6 through 12. He taught in the classroom for 10 years as a secondary social studies teacher, and then moved to the director of social studies in Texas before he moved to New Hampshire and joined the SAU 6 team. I have Tammy Morse, who is the professional development coordinator and tech integrator. She's been with SAU 6 for 16 years, and in the past 11 years as a PD coordinator and technology integrator. I have Courtney Porter, who is the social worker. She is also the McKinney-Vento homeless liaison, DCYF foster care point of contact for pre-K to 12. She has had 19 years in education and completing her 7th year here in Claremont. And she is the first school social worker in SAU 6. I have Tiffany Young, who is a classroom teacher for 2nd grade. She graduated from Plymouth State University in 2011, and she lives in Claremont with her husband. And then finally, I have Heather Shepard, and she is a parent of a freshman and a junior here in the Claremont district. So I'm so excited to have this cross section of your district here. And let's jump right into the questions. So the first question I wanted to pose to the group is, prior to COVID-19, what structures or systems did you already have in place to support learning, remote learning specifically? And if there were none, or if there were limited, did you implement new structures or systems since we've gone to remote learning?
All right, and I'll start with that one. Donna Magoon, the assistant superintendent. So there were two things that we had in place at the time. We did have Google Classroom. However, not all of our teachers had Google Classroom up and running for our students. It was mostly in our upper levels, some in our elementary levels, but mostly in our upper levels. So we did have a little bit of Google Classroom going, but most importantly, we have amazing staff members. And I think it's our staff members that really made the difference in making our remote learning so successful. And so some of the things that we did put in place, so when we first started, we were kind of fortunate. We actually had the Monday off before the governor made the announcement that we were closing for that week. And so we had already put in place that we were going to be meeting as a team to develop remote learning bags and start the Google Classroom process in case we went any longer. And so we started with our remote learning bags. So that's one of our first things we did. And along with that, we had all of our teachers from, I think it was second grade and upbringing, do Google Classroom. Yeah. And then from that point, we started offering professional development to our staff. We created a remote learning website so our parents would have access to a lot of things that we're doing and updates that we were doing, as well as a lot of the guides for them to how to use Google Classroom and how to get on, and as well as their kids. And we did put links on there so that way kids can go into their teacher's classroom through links right on our website as well. We handed out computers to all of our staffs. We are not a one-to-one school. So what we needed to do is we needed to start handing out computers to our students. And so we designed pickup dates. Each one of our schools put out the pickup dates to their students and parents, and the parents came and picked them up. The parents that were not able to, we were very fortunate to have Courtney Porter and some of our principals went out and delivered. Courtney is still currently delivering computers to families as we speak. Well, not as we speak right now, but she probably was this morning. So we had that going on. We created a remote learning expectation guide for families and for our staff that we did send home to families, so that way they knew what the expectation was. We started our food program, which it's a Monday through Friday, and we'll go a little bit more into this later on when we talk about it, but so that way we could make sure that our families were being fed. And so we started to deliver food to our families, as well as have our buses around at our schools to provide the food for our families, as well as during school vacation week, we provided food, as well as on the vacations, the weekends, we provide food. This long weekend, we provided enough food for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for our families. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. And the great news we have about our summer food program. We connected with local carriers to provide free internet access, Wi-Fi, to some of our families that did not have internet in their homes, because we had some families that we could give them a computer, but what good was it if they didn't have internet access? So we did that. We purchased phones for all of our teachers, so our teachers could reach out to their students, and the families could have phone numbers to actually call the teachers, because now you could not call the school to get a hold of the teacher. So we gave phones to all of our classroom teachers. And so that's just some of the things that we've started in our district.
That's fantastic. That's a ton of things. I think getting the phones to teachers must have been huge. I can't imagine being a teacher and necessarily wanting to give out my personal phone number, but to have a work phone that my students could reach out to, that's awesome. What a great idea.
It was a quick turnaround too. I mean, they had them within, what was it, a week? I mean, it was quick. They had them quickly.
Awesome. I would love to hear a little bit about what's going well with remote learning. I know some of us are starting to think about winding down, but I would love to hear some of the successes you've had with it, you know, as a teacher or as a family engaging in remote learning.
Well, I can speak to how the district has set up to support our staff and families. I think that our district is very rich with supports. We have professional development opportunities that the curriculum and our amazing technology team works together with, so that our teachers are supported. And then we think about what Courtney does, and we think about what our food program has been doing. So I think that at the district level, we're really rich with supporting our staff so that they're successful for our students to be successful.
Fantastic.
As a family, I think that it's been going pretty well too. The teachers have been, contacting my two children pretty regularly. I haven't really had to help my children much. They've been pretty well on top of it. Power School, I'm able to kind of check it to make sure that they're staying on top of what they need to be. Sometimes it's a little bit slower with the catch up, but there's a lot of kids and a lot of work being graded, so I understand that. But they're real quick to, I'm an emailer, so I'll email and say, hey, this says Colby hasn't completed this, and immediately they get back and say, yep, he did complete it, or oh, he hasn't finished it, or and so the communication has been well. I like getting the emails at the beginning of the week saying this is what's due for the week, because then I can kind of stay on top of it as well. So it's been good.
Awesome.
I think another thing that has gone very well is it's the whole process has been an exercise in decision making. And a problem comes up and everybody comes together and there's a solution to the problem and we act on it very quickly. And so all of the things that Donna had talked about that we had done were all a question that came up, like, how are we going to get these people food? How are we going to get teachers phones? How are we going to get them computers? And so for the first couple of weeks, there was so much happening and people were just moving in every different direction as quick as they could to jump into action to solve all of these problems that we just had never anticipated before. And so I think that speaks volumes about the staff and the people and the community all coming together, so it's been pretty interesting.
And I think that's a big part of it. We came together as a community, so that really made a huge difference. Our staff members making the transitions that they did to teaching in a way that you don't learn in college, you don't learn to do this stuff in college, so now you're making these unconventional ways of teaching and how to reach our children, and making sure they're safe at home and making sure that the work is getting done, and trying not to put so much of a burden on the parents, because the parents really stepped up, and so we were very fortunate. The thinking outside the box approach to learning, our staff just took right a hold of that, and they did really well with that. We pre-record our lessons, so we make it more convenient for families. So we pre-record them and we post them, and that way a student can be on them at any time. One of the things that we were finding is that a lot of our local grocery stores, the population that work in there were the ones that were affected by COVID, the COVID-19, and so what we needed to do is a lot of our high school kids stepped up and they were working more hours and they couldn't be in class at a certain time. And so with our pre-recorded lessons, they can do them when it was convenient for them, or families that were working. We have a lot of parents that are working through all of this, and they cannot get to the kids' work during the day. They go on at night or they go on in the weekend. So we don't necessarily have, here's your assignment for Monday, it's due Monday. We say, here's your assignments for the week. Please get to them when you can. They're all due by Sunday, and then, so that made it a little bit more convenient for parents. So if I had 2 kids, I could do Monday and Tuesday's work for one kid, and then I could, on Monday, and then that child could have Monday, Tuesday off, and I could work with the other student, the other child. So it would make it a little bit more convenient for parents. That's what we were hoping to do when we tried to break it that way. And then we have families that, that are working in this field that they never expected to be working in. They decide, oh, I'm going to be a nurse, or I'm going to work, retail. They didn't say, well, I'm going to be a teacher. And now all of a sudden, now you're a teacher, and so we've had a lot of people really stepping up. And I think that's what's been working. People have been taking on the roles that they've been given in a positive way.
I think your flexibility is key there, giving the choices, because there are some barriers that you kind of touched upon, students working more hours. Are there any other challenges or barriers that you guys have come up up against with remote learning? I know you touched on them a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little more.
I think it's really hard to keep those relationships with the kids, especially the few that you haven't been able to reach. And I think that's a big part of where Courtney comes into play, is that it helps to keep those relationships. But teaching is relationships, and when you can't be with those kids face to face, it's really difficult, and it's just a different relationship. So I think that's been a huge barrier and a huge change.
And ideally, the whole role of a school social worker, whether we're remote learning, whether we're in session, is to remove barriers to accessing education. And so right now, for 7 years, I've worked on removing the barriers that aren't a part of the regular typical school day. Now we are the barrier because we're not in the buildings. And as Bryn said, I can't reiterate enough. It's all about relationships. And for so many students, not only in Claremont, but all over the place, that 6.5 hours that they're in school are some of the best and well-connected hours that they have. They have relationships with teachers that they don't have with any other person on the planet. And I think even as grown adults, we can all kind of think back to a certain teacher we had, and they were so important to us, and they helped to really kind of shape us and mold us and point us in a direction that we wanted to go. So that certainly has been one of the hardest things. And also, I think we're finding that, people we're stuck, we're together. And as much as we all love each other, you can only spend so much time with the people that you love. And so for a lot of families and a lot of students, this togetherness is uncomfortable. And so we're certainly seeing some increase in anxiety in students, anxiety in families. With all the stuff that's out in the media, people are stuck in their houses. They've got the news on, and whether, whatever channel they might be on might be like all doom and gloom. So they're thinking, oh my gosh, we're never going to get out of this. We're going to be doing it forever. What's the new normal going to look like?
Yeah, I think
challenges has been the anxiety and stress level of families.
Yeah, I was going to say that we as educators really pay attention to the whole child, and that includes hugely social emotional learning and well-being. And we can't do that. You can check in with kids and say, hey, how was your day, or how are you feeling today? But the student may not always be honest with their feelings in a situation where they're not with you. So I think that is a huge lacking area also, is being able to truly gauge where kids are at and their social emotional well-being.
Something that I have found too, during my home visits and just in general with people reaching out to me, families, and Donna had touched on this, families are becoming teachers now. And so, and especially for the upper grades, parents are looking at trying to teach their children how to do things that they don't know how to do, whether it be learning Spanish or algebra or trigonometry, things like that. So for a lot of families, there's this added layer of stress where they feel like, I'm failing my child because I don't know this. So I think that's been another barrier with the remote learning, is just families feeling like, I don't know if I can do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have you done any outreach to students or families outside of those academic reasons? And what has that looked like? Has it been just phone calls, or have you done a little more outreach?
So I've done phone calls, emails, Google Meets, and I've done some driveway therapy. I put on my mask. I've got my half a gallon of hand sanitizer that rides in my passenger seat with me everywhere I go. And I've just been able to have conversations. I've sat at picnic tables with families, and just being able to let them know that it's okay. That right now, it's okay that you're anxious, that you're stressed, and that you're struggling, because we all are. And just letting them know that there are people here in the community who can help. We do still, West Central Behavioral Health and Counseling Associates are a couple of the big mental health folks that we partner with, and they're right here in our community. They're still accepting intakes and things like that. So we do have additional higher level need mental health supports that are available to families. I've shared some hotline information there if people just want to do like a talk anonymously about some things that they've got going on. And again, it just goes back to giving people permission to feel whatever they might be feeling. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be angry. But on the plus side, there are kids who are loving this and who are thriving. So it's okay too to be excited that, hey, I can do it when I'm not in school.
I know that also there's been guidance counselors at the elementary level, at least I know, that have been reaching out to kids and to families to support them that way, whether it be a phone call or a Google Meet or something along that lines, just to kind of reach out and build that relationship again as best they can.
Another thing that's been happening at the middle school is that advisory teachers have been holding virtual lunches with their kids. So they all jump on a Google Meet and there's a teacher there just so that they can see their friends and chat and have some food and, just kind of have that connection to their friends that they might be missing. Tonight, I think there's a virtual dance that they're hosting tonight at the middle school. So
Yep.
I've been asked to chaperone that, to
That's pretty cool.
get on and participate in that. So I think the staff have been really creative to come up with ways that they can, have these kids communicate with each other and get along with each other and see each other, even though we're all in isolation. I think another thing that we've been doing is it's just been all hands on deck to reach out to community members in need. I can't tell you how many times this started where I was given a voicemail from a parent saying, I need internet access. I need internet access. Not my job, but I pick up the phone and I'll call and I'll talk to the parent and say, okay, well, I'll get you what I can and send emails to the people or call people and try and help. And so I'm speaking with parents and kind of helping them through all the trials and tribulation at the same time. So it's been everybody's working together to reach out to parents, reach out to students, get students to see each other. It's really been, a lot has been happening, probably too much to list.
Well, one of the things too that we're very fortunate about is that our SRO has been on board with us. And so if we have staff members, like we have a protocol in place. So if a student's not doing any work, the teacher reaches out. If the teacher can't get a hold, the principal reaches out. If the principal can't get a hold, then it goes to our SRO, and our SRO goes to the house and actually does a well check visit to make sure that the child's okay. And it's not like, hey, you're not doing your work. It's, it's kind of like, between Courtney and our SRO, what can we do to help you? Maybe it's they don't have internet, maybe they don't have a way to get a hold of anybody, or they don't have the means, they don't know what to do. And so the SRO goes out there, or sometimes Courtney will go out there and do that. And we have a truant officer that does checks after that to check in. So we do have a lot of check-ins. Our elementary school, and Tiffany may be able to speak a little bit more on this one, but I know some of our elementary school teachers, we're a responsive classroom district. And so some of our elementary schools actually hold responsive classroom meetings, morning meetings, that all the kids can join in on that.
I
Yeah,
would, love to hear from you,
absolutely.
Tiffany.
Multiple teachers, all different grade levels, are holding those morning meetings where kiddos can get on and see their friends, have a shared time, talk about what's going on for them, and just socialize and see their peers, which is such a huge thing right now that they really need. I know that students are used to seeing their teachers every week when they meet with them for academic purposes, but our specials teachers, art, music, PE, are really missing the kiddos, and the kiddos are missing them as well. So they've started doing snack breaks with the specials teachers, and the kids have also started doing lunch bunches with some of those specials teachers as well. To get that contact. I know I personally have sent out postcards to my students, I miss you, that kind of thing. I've done some Google Meets with past families that I have relationships with as well to check in and see how things are going. And our school in particular has been using our district our district Facebook page to put pictures of teachers with inspiring messages to kiddos like, hey, we see you're working hard. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. We miss you. We'll see you soon. That kind of thing.
That's wonderful. I think you raise an important point though, is as teachers, it's not just that one school year. We form relationships that really last, and reaching out to those past families is super important. Reaching out to anybody that you think might be having a hard time, if you can offer support, that's wonderful, Tiffany. I'm curious how SAU 6 is planning to close out the school year. I know it's warm out finally, and we're thinking about winding down for the year. Any unique things you're doing out there?
In the classroom side of things, I always do an end of the year memory book with students, and I always read the last day blues on the last day. So I was wondering how I could turn those things virtual for my students, and I did. I turned it into a virtual memory book, and they'll insert pictures of things or type about and write about what they've done over the school year. And I'll do a video meet where I can show them and read them the book or record it. I know that we are working as a PTO to get a yearbook out to kiddos. That's really important to us. That's something normal that we do every year, and we really want to keep that. And then we're brainstorming some ways to send fifth graders off to the middle school and show them that we really appreciate them. They're missing a lot of the things that they've looked forward to, like an end of the year kickball game. They've been looking forward to that for a very long time. So we still want to make sure that they feel important. So we're going to do some sort of a parade probably near the end of the year for them, some videos and some other things that will make them feel real loved.
That's wonderful.
For us that are working all year round, the summer is like our beginning. So it's always the beginning of the year for us starts right at the summer. So it's preparing our teachers for the next year. So assessing what we're doing now and thinking about remote learning and how do we move forward with that, not knowing what's going to happen, but also taking pieces of the good stuff and being able to implement it as we come back into the classroom. So preparing. So we're never winding down in the summer. We're just starting up. So
Yeah. One of the things that we're currently looking at doing right now as a team is we're putting together a survey that's going to go out to teachers, to students, to community members, to parents that says, well, hey, what went well? What didn't go well? What can we do? We offer you PD. Now, we just have a list of things that we've been brainstorming and working on, and we're hoping to get that out to everybody next week. So it's going to go to parents, it's going to go to students, it's going to go to staff, it's going to go to community members, just to everybody that we can reach out to see what we can do to make it better. Because what we know is that there is a possibility that we may still be in remote learning when school starts again. We don't have the word yet, but we could be. And another thing that we do know is that if we go back to school and it starts again, we start to see an uprise, then we need to go back to remote learning. So we want to make sure this time that we're ahead of the game. We're getting the things that we need. One of the biggest things that we didn't have was internet stuff for our families. So we're currently looking at getting hotspots that we may be able to provide to some of our Chromebooks to some of our families that do not have that. So, and what that would look like. So this is the end is the beginning for some of us. We're extremely thankful for our teachers. It's in our staff. It's amazing what they have accomplished. It really is. Our parents, it's amazing what they have done.
Absolutely. Tammy, you touched on my next question a little bit, but I'm curious if there are aspects of remote learning that you plan to keep when you move forward. And Donna, you touched on this a little bit too. Any new things you implemented that you want to continue to use?
I know that I've had many conversations with staff members about they learned this new tool, for example, Google Classroom or Seesaw, and they just love it. And they say to me, I really can see using this next year in my classroom all the time. So I think this has really kind of forced us to think outside of the box in ways that some people weren't sure if they were comfortable to go there yet. And they went there and they turned out to really love it. So I know that there's a lot of the tools and the resources that teachers and staff members have been using that they are going to use moving forward, regardless of if we're in remote learning or not.
Another interesting thing about this whole experience and carrying that through is understanding that time is the most precious resource that teachers and families have. And this now has opened up a whole new window to extend that learning to kids through the online platform. So in the beginning, when I was talking to teachers about doing a flipped classroom, teachers would say, well, when am I going to learn how to do that? When are we going to do training? I don't have time for that. Well, you just learned how to do that through online learning, through this crash course. We didn't have to have a whole lot of PD on it or something. So now the potential for learning going into the new school year, using Google Classroom, doing flipped classrooms, extending that homework assignment online, bringing all of the special ed resources that are available, those tools that are online that kids can do, all of that can be deployed now virtually as well as in the classroom. And so it extends that time that we have on learning. So I'm pretty excited about that moving forward.
One of the other things we're looking at doing for next year is we're looking at going one-to-one. So all of our students will have computers in their hands. So looking at doing that. And so the other piece is what we do at our district is we go by hours. And so we don't go by days. So what we do at the end of the year is we add on 5 school days, and that makes up for any snow days that we have. So we don't make up snow days at the end because they're built right into our year already. So one of the things that we're looking at is, hey, if we're one-to-one, our kids are familiar with Google Classroom and Seesaw. Why don't we now look at the possibility of using these as blizzard bag days and then taking back those 5 days? So that's one of the things that we've been talking about doing as well.
That's awesome.
And I also think this is an opportunity with the remote learning for teachers to use certain things, and then now we can find out what's valuable, you know, and weed out some of the stuff and really take a deeper look into some of the technologies and how it plays in with the curriculum and our everyday lives as educators to be able to use it. So I think that's very valuable as well, to be able to see what worked, what didn't work, how can we move forward with that, and how do we support our staff moving forward with that?
Absolutely. I'm curious if you've learned anything new since we started remote learning, you know, either as a family in the community, as a teacher or staff. Have you learned anything new about the district and about the school since now we're remote learning and physically distancing, but somehow more connected?
Well, I didn't learn this. I already knew this, but it just confirmed what I knew, is that we are really strong as an SAU and we really rally when we need to. So I think that it just validated what I already knew about how hard we work and how tirelessly we work and just how resilient we are as a district.
Absolutely.
I agree. I agree 100% with Tiffany. We've really come above. I mean, this is amazing. And I keep saying how amazing the staff is and the families that we have in the community. We're lucky. We are very lucky.
And talented. We have a lot of talent in the district.
I agree. I think this is really brought to the forefront for families and parents to realize, I as an individual realize how hard teachers and staff work because of what I do for work. But I think that not all families realize that teaching is not a 9 to 5. It's a 24-hour, 7 days a week job. And being put into that position as a parent on top of working, like they're realizing how hard their teachers work. And I think that that's a great thing for parents and, you know, caregivers to understand. And now I think they'll appreciate that more once we go back to a regular school day. Hopefully.
Heather, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Teacher Appreciation Week was just a few weeks ago, and I've never seen turnout like that from families posting gratitude posts and you know, that kind of stuff. I think you're absolutely right. Families are realizing the work teachers put in. Does anybody want to share their hopes and dreams for the next school year? And do you think what will look different as we move into this next fall?
I hope we're back.
I think we all do, you know, and you know, when that's a long question for me to answer because of what my role is, you know, so I have a lot of hopes and dreams for what our school will look like next year and our, you know, our district will look like next year. But I think that the most important thing that I hope is to have our kids back in our buildings, you know, in a way that's safe for everyone. I think that's far most the important thing. What will be different? That's hard to make that decision right now. We know there's going to be a lot of things different, but we quite don't know yet what's going to be different because you know, we haven't been told a lot of things. We have thoughts in our head of what's going to change and how we're going to rework things, but until we get something from the government that says, here's what you have to do, we really can't make that determination, because it could be, well, this is what we want our school to look like, and the governor says, nah, that's not going to work, and then we have to rechange everything. So I think one of the things that I've told a lot of our staff, as you know, as we begin to talk about this, I said, let's get through today, and then let's get through tomorrow, and then let's get to the end of the week, and then let's get to the end of the school year, and then we can start saying, okay, what's going to happen next? What are we going to do next? So I don't want to, this is very overwhelming for a lot of people. And I think if we're looking at, okay, everybody, what are we going to do next year? You know, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get through this year. You know, let's get through this year. And so we don't want to overwhelm anybody and say, okay, what's going on next year? How are we going to pull this together? So we just say one step at a time, hour by hour, day by day, you know, let's get to the end, and then we're going to move forward.
Absolutely. I think that's, you know, one day at a time. That's all you can do right now. Nobody knows what next week's going to look like. So wonderful. As we wrap up, I'm curious if anyone has any last thoughts about remote learning or SAU 6, or, you know, anything else they want to share about their experience.
I think overall we did a fantastic job. My husband's also a teacher, and some of his directives were not quite as clear. So I was like, we are really killing it over here in SAU 6. I think that administration did a really good job at getting us information in a timely manner, and down all the way down the ladder. I think that our tech department was fantastic. They would come around to our schools prior to remote learning and say, what do you need help with? Can I show you this new tech tool and all these things? And we're always like, oh, we're okay. We don't need anything. Well, we all came back with our tail between our legs and we're like, can you help us? And they were like, yes. And they welcomed us with open arms. So everybody was just really flexible and just always willing to help. It doesn't matter if it was our job or not. Like Stephen said earlier, his job's not helping with internet, but he did. So everybody just helped with everything. And it was just really nice to see us all come together. So I think we did a really good job.
I think I want to piggyback on what Tiff said about the tech department. I think that they have been just stellar as far as like the biggest problem or issue that we had to solve was getting kids online. And so, you know, we had to hand out school assignments to kids, and we had to do, you know, paper packets at the beginning, and the tech people came together and, you know, got hundreds of computers ready to go to be distributed to kids, and set up systems so that we could track them and sign them out to parents. And we had cars coming up to the school, and we were just handing them out, signing them out, you know, here's your computer, good to go, here's your charger, here's your battery, and off they'd go. And then we were scrambling for computers at one point, and the tech department would go in and pull a computer cart out of the library, clean all the computers, get them up and ready to go for the next morning so that we could have that many more computers to hand out. And they did it at the elementary school, they did it at the middle school, they did it at the high school. And that turnaround was incredibly quick. And we wouldn't have been able to deploy all of our other tools if it wasn't for what the tech department did and getting everything ready to go. So I think they deserve huge props for what they did.
I'd like to give a shout out to our food service folks and the transportation people. The folks that are working in the kitchen at the high school are pumping out over 500 bags a day. And in that bag is a breakfast and a lunch. And they're working tirelessly to make sure that the kiddos in our community have food and that it's one less worry for our families. And to our bus drivers who are parked at the schools, they're kind of sometimes, I think, forgotten about because we don't really see them in the day-to-day, but they are the first face that so many kids see. They're the ones that help kind of lay the groundwork for a lot of our students if they woke up and they had a rough morning. Seeing that bus driver and that smiley face, so the fact that they can still be kind of, you know, planted and at the schools and are still connecting with students, I know that it means a lot to them. And I would imagine it means a lot to the students and families too, to still be able to see that familiar face that they're used to.
Absolutely. Our program is actually providing roughly 900 nutritious meals a day is what we're producing currently as we go. And in some families have certain requirements, you know, a child can't have dairy, they can't have this, and they are making the meals based on certain students' needs. So it's been really, they have really come done a lot for our community. So we're really, really proud for everything they've done. And yeah, our bus drivers are out there every day. They're the ones that are handing them out at our 5 locations. We have 5 pickup locations, and it's our bus drivers that are the ones that are standing there handing out these lunches to our students. So it's been great. But a big shout out to our families. Our families have been given a task, like I said earlier, they didn't wake up one morning and say, I think I'm going to go to school to be an educator. They were just forced to be an educator. A lot of us go into this field for certain reasons. A parent, they're saying, I didn't choose to be an educator, so they're kind of forced to do it, but they're really picking it up and they're being amazing. And so a big shout out to them for all that they're doing.
Absolutely. Families, they are a huge supporter for students on a regular basis. And now they are, the supporter for students and their educator. I can't imagine. That's huge. It sounds like SAU 6 has been moving mountains over there. I'm so impressed with everything you guys have done. And I really want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your, I'm sure, hectic days to join the panel and share with the world kind of what's going on, all these amazing things that you've integrated into your district at, the flip of a switch. Really, nobody saw this coming. So I just want to extend my gratitude to you guys, and I hope that everything that you've been working on continues and flourishes within your district.
Thank you for having us, Molly.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you, Molly.
Of course. And as we wrap up, to our viewers, I want to encourage everybody to like and subscribe our social media accounts so you get notified every time we go live with panels like this and other wellness topics. And I want to encourage everybody to stay well and to reach out to others when you can. Have a great weekend.